Origin Chess, reaction. This is Pakistan versus India. Terrorist tit for tat by the channel Warographics. Yeah, it's about Pakistan versus India and terrorist front. Now, I'm not an just because I'm an Indian doesn't mean I'm in any way expert in this, but I would know a thing or two about, and I'm gonna stay unbiased as much as I can. But it's Pakistan's fault. Okay, let's watch one. All right, I'm pretty sure I watched one Warographics video, right? Yeah, recently. I don't know if this guy has way too many channels. Like, it's Warographics, then there's some technology channel. There's also 2-3 channels. So Warographics, I'm pretty sure I've watched one video on it. I don't think I've watched India Pakistan type of video on it. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's about terrorism, right? Like, India and Pakistan is, let's just say, it's a border of terrorism. Terrorist organization has been trying to get into India, obviously can't. India is one of the top 5 major powers right now, so you can't just like seep into it like that, right? There are enough National Guard and things, enough agencies to look for it, so it's not gonna just happen. And not to mention the population. Are not going to be keen on harboring any terrorist cell or something. So you can India is dense country. You can just do that and people not notice. So let's this one.
On the 15th of August 1947, one country became two. The partition of India into India and Pakistan was supposed to ease tensions and allow the much maligned people of the subcontinent, whether they be Hindi, Sikh, Muslim or Christian,
Hindu or
to live
Hindi,
in peace, free from persecution. Sadly, that couldn't have been further from the truth. The largest single partition of a populace that the world had ever seen lit the fuse on a powder keg that quickly detonated with shocking results, and ethnic violence raged on both sides of the newly created border. It's thought that between 14 and 18 million...
Wouldn't that be religious violence, like Muslim and Hindu? It's ethnic, like it's kind of like the same. I think religious violence.
People moved from India to Pakistan or vice versa. Excess mortality recorded during this dark period put the number killed at over 1 million. And things didn't stop there. The two nations have fought 4 separate wars in the intervening years, as well as numerous cross-border skirmishes that continue to take lives to this day. There remains deep suspicion between the two countries, and in many cases there's outright hatred. These sentiments have hardened over time, not just because of the wars they fought, but because both have been accused of either funding or directing terrorist attacks on their neighbor. Gunmen storming facilities, car bombs, train derailments, kidnapping.
India is funding terrorists. Have you lost your mind? India has been the one who's been constantly been attacked and been like almost scarred, like worrying about what if like terrorists get inside the India. India's not funding shit. Come on, man, that's just reach. Right? Where was Bin Laden found? It was in Pakistan, right? Look at the Mumbai attacks. I mean, are you kidding me?
Mass shootings. The list is long, and the bad blood runs deep. The partition led to one of the largest mass migrations in history, accompanied by horrific communal violence and a humanitarian crisis on a scale that still has not been repeated. The now infamous Radcliffe Line had divided India, in theory, with the majority Muslim area to the west and the majority Hindu region to the east. In reality, it was never that simple. India was under colonial rule, but many of the smaller states in the country were, in effect, run by their own mini-monarchy, and these were known as princely states. The process of all of these states joining either India or Pakistan wasn't concluded until 1949. One of the most contentious holdouts was Jammu and Kashmir, a state with a majority Muslim population, but a Hindu leader who initially chose neither India nor Pakistan, a situation that the British, along with just about everybody else, thought was utterly unacceptable. Tensions quickly began to rise, and war became inevitable. The conflict began in earnest in October 1947, when tribal militias from Pakistan's northwest frontier province, supported by elements of the Pakistani military, invaded Kashmir in an effort to annex the territory. The invasion saw rapid advances and was marked by significant violence, particularly against the Hindu and Sikh minorities in the region. Faced with an overwhelming force and the prospect of losing control over his kingdom, Maharaja Hari Singh sought military assistance from India, who agreed to intervene on the condition that Kashmir accede to India once the job was complete. Hari Singh signed the Instrument of Accession on October 26, 1947, legally integrating Kashmir into India, and the very next day, Indian forces were airlifted into Srinagar, the capital of Kashmir, marking the beginning of active military engagement between India and Pakistan. The war was fought on multiple fronts, but the most significant battles took place in the regions around Srinagar, Poonch, and Uri. Indian forces managed to halt the advance of the tribal militias and the Pakistani military in several vital areas, securing Srinagar and pushing back against the invaders in other regions of the princely state. The war officially ended on January 1, 1949, when a UN-brokered ceasefire came into effect. The ceasefire line, colloquially known as the Line of Control, divided Kashmir into areas administered by Pakistan, referred to as Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan, and the Indian region of Jammu and Kashmir. However, the resolution of the conflict was far from satisfactory for both parties, and the seeds for further conflict were already sown. In August 1965, Pakistani army troops from the Azad Kashmir Regular Forces, disguised as locals, crept across the Line of Control and into the Indian-administered region of Jammu and Kashmir. This covert operation, named after the historic Islamic conquest of Gibraltar, marked the beginning of the Second Indo-Pak War and sought to infiltrate forces into Jammu and Kashmir in an attempt to carry out sabotage, including attacking military installations, communication lines, and spreading propaganda, hoping to incite an insurgency among the Muslim population against Indian rule, ultimately leading to the region's accession to Pakistan. Pakistani planners believed that the local population in Kashmir, predominantly Muslim...
Yeah, there you go. Sneaky shit, right? And people say, stay unbiased. How the fuck? And yeah, I'm pretty sure like the 1947 to 1949 thing, right? The prince who was like, let's just say, who's claimed Kashmir was a prince, right? Asked for India's help in the war, right? Saying like Kashmir will, will join India. And I'm pretty sure there was some other guy who like, I don't know, family of the prince or something, who didn't have claim of something, but he just like raised the claim and went to the Pakistan side. That caused issue even more.
Muslim would rise up in support of the infiltrators, leading to a widespread uprising that would compel India to relinquish control over the territory. The operation, however, did not unfold as Pakistan had anticipated. The expected uprising among the Kashmiri population did not materialize due to the unexpectedly high loyalty of a significant portion of the Kashmiri populace to the Indian government, as well as effective counterinsurgency measures by Indian security forces and a lack of coordination among the infiltrating units. India's response was swift and it was fierce. Forces swarmed into Kashmir, stalling Pakistan's military operation while also launching a full-scale military offensive across the international border into Pakistani Punjab in what is now known as Operation Grand Slam. Intense fighting erupted both in Kashmir and along the India-Pakistani border, but again, there were few positive outcomes for either side here. The war ended with the UN-mediated ceasefire on September 23, 1965, and formally concluded with the signing of the Tashkent Agreement in January 1966. When India and Pakistan emerged from Pakistan, one glaring anomaly was East Pakistan. While the majority of the new nation of Pakistan lay west of India, one small section, more than 1,600 kilometers or 1,000 miles away, bucked that trend. A situation that was, at best, going to be rather difficult. In 1971, with the Bangladeshi independence movement quickly gathering pace and with plenty of support from around the world, the refusal of the Pakistani military regime, then headed by General Yahya Khan and West Pakistan's political establishment, to transfer power to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, led to widespread protests and civil disobedience in East Pakistan. In response, on the night of March 25, 1971, the Pakistani military launched Operation Searchlight, a brutal crackdown aimed at quelling the independence movement. This military action led to the arrest of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and the indiscriminate killing of civilians, students, intellectuals, and political activists, sparking a full-scale war for independence. The atrocities committed by the Pakistani military, which included mass killings, rapes, and the displacement of millions of people, garnered international condemnation and led to a significant refugee crisis, with millions of Bengalis fleeing to neighboring India. The conflict intensified in December 1971 when India officially...
Whenever there's talk about India-Pakistan, people are like, oh, both sides did the atrocity. Half of the videos done. Like, how many atrocity did you heard of India doing, right? All the sneaky shit, all this shit. Like, come on, man.
Entered the war in support of the Bangladesh independence movement following a preemptive airstrike by Pakistan on Indian air bases. The Indo-Pakistani War of 1971 lasted just 13 days, and it was one of the shortest wars in history, but it was also decisive. The war culminated in the Pakistani military's surrender in Dhaka on December 16, 1971, leading to the creation of Bangladesh as an independent nation. This may have been just another chapter in the back-and-forth conflict between India and Pakistan, but what happened in Bangladesh was almost unfathomable. The minimum number killed during the genocide that swept East Pakistan was 300,000, with the upper figure being 3 million. Soldiers or militia members raped between 200 and 400,000 Bengali women, and more than 30 million people became displaced during the conflict. In terms of numbers, what happens in what would become Bangladesh was far worse than the much more widely discussed Rwandan genocide.
There's a reason behind that, because during that conflict, USA and UK supported Pakistan, even though there was a clear one bad element compared to the other, right? And I'm pretty sure during this time, Soviet Union is the one who came to aid of India. And people like, why you still think like Russia is your friend? Because of history, right? You can't just forget history, right? There was a time, many times, there was a time where USA was like, kind of like, I won't say friend, but like good alliance with India. But it changed when like they shifted to China because of like Soviet Union, right? Basically instantly abandoning and then like supporting Pakistan when clearly Pakistan was at the wrong. At that time, Soviet Union came to the aid, right? They could have just said like, okay, I'm going to send you like war aid or something. They didn't need to physically come to the aid, but their warships did. The warships were in like Indian Ocean, deterring like US and UK's like response, right? At a time like this, like India's just not going to forget that one. Come on. I mean, obviously India's going to worry about what's better for their people, but there is some element of like, I remember, right? It's not just going to forget like that.
With such a chaotic half a century of conflicts, it's no surprise that there remains huge animosity between the two nations. In 1999, things exploded once again during the Kargil conflict, where Pakistani soldiers and militants infiltrated the Kargil district in Indian-administered Kashmir. The conflict resulted in extensive military and civilian casualties and ended again with India regaining control of the territory. However, one enormous difference existed between this conflict and the three that had come before it. Pakistan and India were now members of the Nuclear Weapon Club. Both nations had begun their nuclear programs back in the 1970s, but usable weapons didn't arrive until the mid to late 90s. The Kargil conflict represented the first and only time two countries possessing nuclear weapons have gone to war, and it heightened nerves around the world as hatred bubbled to the surface in the presence of weapons that could kill millions in seconds. It's now been 25 years since India and Pakistan last went head-to-head in a large-scale open conflict, but that doesn't mean the fighting has stopped. Instead, it's become more covert, often striking directly at citizens of either country rather than the military. Terrorism, both state-sponsored and non-state, has been a significant tool for both asserting political agendas and destabilizing the region. There is a long list of terrorist attacks on Indian soil where Pakistani-based militants were thought to be responsible. In 2000, an attack on the Red Fort in Delhi killed 3, while in 2001, a car bomb detonated outside the Jammu and Kashmir State Legislative Assembly complex in Srinagar, killing 38 people. 2 months later, in December 2001, a group of armed militants attacked the Indian Parliament in New Delhi, leading to the deaths of 9 people, including security personnel. On the 11th of July 2006, 11 separate bombs went off on different trains on Mumbai's rail network during afternoon rush hour, killing 209 and injuring over 700. The 2008 Mumbai attacks, a series of coordinated terrorist attacks, resulted in widespread devastation, claiming the lives of 166 people and injuring over 300. The attackers, armed with automatic weapons and grenades, targeted multiple locations, causing a 3-day siege in India's financial capital. Investigations pointed towards the Lashkar-e-Taiba, a Pakistan-based militant group, as the orchestrators of the attack, with evidence suggesting support and facilitation.
Look, I know he has to say both states sponsor. It's not. India doesn't sponsor terrorism. Are you fucking kidding me? It doesn't make sense in any point, right? Whether it's religiously or like any like nation's identity or anything. In the end of the day, like, when it comes to agenda, it doesn't make sense for India to do that, right? It's only Pakistan, right? Pakistan's military decides who comes to power. Are you fucking kidding me? That's a stable state, right? And, where was like, Osama was found, right? Where is time and time again, like terrorist is found, like even US is like, surgical attacks usually ends up in Pakistan. Are you kidding me? Right? And all these attacks, all the terrorist attack in India, there's clearly one element that is, shown as bad here, right? Pakistan constantly trying to do sneaky shit with terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism in India. India keep trying to push it back.
By elements within Pakistan. In early 2016, the Pathankot Air Force Base in India came under attack by heavily armed gunmen, leading to a prolonged security operation that resulted in the death of 7 security personnel and all attackers. The assault was quickly linked to the Jaish-e-Mohammed, another group operating from Pakistani territory. The incident led to a temporary derailment of the diplomatic dialogue that had been gaining momentum, with India insisting on actionable intelligence and concrete measures from Pakistan against the groups responsible. The Pulwama attack in February 2019 marked another escalation in tensions when a suicide bomber targeted a convoy of Indian paramilitary personnel in Jammu and Kashmir, killing 40 soldiers. The attack, again claimed by Jaish-e-Mohammed, led to widespread outrage in India and calls for punitive action. In response, India conducted an airstrike in Balakot, Pakistan, targeting what it claimed were terrorist training camps, marking the first time since the 1971 war that aerial bombings had crossed the line of control. The subsequent downing of an Indian aircraft and the capture of its pilot by Pakistani forces further escalated the situation, although the pilot's quick release was seen as a de-escalatory gesture. Just as in India, there is a painfully long list of terrorist attacks that have been carried out in Pakistan, with fingers often being pointed back toward India. The insurgency in...
Bitch, please, come on, right? They're doing to themselves, so, oh, look at that, India's doing this just to, create pressure in their own regime. So, no people in power shifts, right? Come on, India is doing that. Have you lost your mind? I try to stay unbiased, right? I make a joke and things, but people have seen I always try to stay unbiased. When it's China, India, China, this, Pakistan, I try to stay unbiased. I might even go in the favor of other side, so I don't look unbiased. I try to dunk on India when I can, just so I can look unbiased. There is no unbiased in this one, right? Anyone with 2 brain cells can see Pakistan constantly do terrorist attacks, state-sponsored terrorist attack. India doesn't have to do that. Look at India's economy. Look at India's military. It's one of the top 5 countries. Look, its government is stable. Same can be said about Pakistan and its military. Military is the government at that point. Are you kidding me? Right? This is just absurd.
Balochistan, a province of Pakistan, has been a long-standing conflict where a series of uprisings and armed struggles has killed many. The region's discontent stems from various issues, including demands for autonomy, control over natural resources, cultural and linguistic rights, and economic disparities. Bloc nationalists have often accused the Pakistani government of exploitation and marginalization, leading to repeated cycles of insurgency since the area became a part of Pakistan in 1948. Pakistan has repeatedly accused India of supporting the Baloch insurgents, alleging that India's intelligence agency, the Research and Analysis Ring, or RAW, is involved in funding, arming, and training the separatist groups to destabilize Pakistan. In March 2016...
Give one concrete evidence of that, just one, right? Just one, even a single paper concrete evidence of that, right? And I'll talk.
Gulbhushan Yadav, an Indian national, was arrested by Pakistani authorities and charged with espionage and sabotage. The Pakistani military released a video of Yadav in which he confessed his role as an agent of RAW tasked with organizing espionage and sabotage activities in Balochistan and Karachi. India denies that he is a spy, stating instead that he is an ex-Navy officer whom Pakistan has kidnapped. There are almost too many attacks to mention here, but over the last few years, Balochistan has become a deadly place. The most recent large-scale attack was on the eve of the Pakistani election on the 7th of February 2024, when 2 IED bombs planted on motorbikes killed more than 30 people in Pishin district and Killa Saifullah. It should be said that ISIL has claimed both attacks, but that has done little to dissuade people from the idea of Indian involvement. In 2021, a suicide bomber detonated an explosive at a police checkpoint in Lahore, killing 4 people. The attack was thought to have targeted the house.
Come on, man. Ask, go take, some news channel, I don't know, Al Jazeera or something. Go to Pakistani people in street and ask them. 99% of people say yeah, we don't believe India is involved. Even they don't believe it. Are you kidding me?
Hafiz Saeed, the founder of a militant Islamist group blamed for a deadly 2008 attack in Mumbai. Saeed is currently serving a 31-year prison sentence, but has never been tried for the Mumbai attacks. After arresting several members of the terrorist cell involved in the attack, Pakistani authorities said they uncovered a pay trail leading back to India that funded the cell to the tune of $800,000.
Yeah, look, man, here's the thing, right? Yeah, when it comes to BJP and Congress, when it comes to election, it's like a fierce back and forth. It's been the case for past 10 plus years. If Modi government was actually doing that, Congress would use that just enough of a fuel, right? Even if they don't believe it, they would use that as a fuel. There is no concrete evidence. They know they can't do that, otherwise they'll look like an idiot in front of people, right? So this is all just BS, their BS startup, like, oh, we are not the only one doing that, they are doing that as well. No, they are not. India doesn't have to do this.
At this stage, it's difficult to see how these two nations disentangle themselves from this death dive and cycle of recrimination. The rise of China as a regional power and its strategic partnership with Pakistan, coupled with the changing dynamics of US involvement in Afghanistan and India's ever closer relationship with Russia, has added new dimensions to the complex and torturous relationship. The India-Pakistan disputes lie in deep-seated mistrust, historical grievances, and complicated domestic politics and international diplomacy. However, as in many parts of the world, hatred is often driven by governments who need a scared population to remain powerful and stay relevant. Most Indians and Pakistanis are thoroughly tired of this never-ending dispute between two groups who were one less than 70 years ago. But of course, the problem.
Yeah, India doesn't need that scared thing. Oh, Pakistan's here to get you. That won't even work if India do it, because nobody's going to believe that shit. There is no precedent where India attacks first. It's always Pakistan trying to claim Kashmir and trying to attack Indian, officials. Like how many in this video, how many terrorist attack to India you just like listen to, right? And they just, oh, by the way, this one or two like who linked to our terrorists in our soil, but they were like funded by India. Yeah, sure, why not? Sure. See, the thing is, if Middle East is like turbulent, if there are like terrorist cell in Middle East, the Middle East ends at India and Pakistan border. That's how it is, right? India doesn't need to do all this shit, right? Modi doesn't need that kind of scare tactic, right? Modi might use other scare tactics. It doesn't need this. It wouldn't even work. People are like, come on, right? So Pakistan and China, what? India's going to attack Pakistan if Pakistan didn't have China? Yeah, India always responds. It's never the first to attack anything, right? India is always like, has this since 1950, since the like government, the first came to power, right? They have been this pacifist, doctrine, let's just call it. They always respond. They're never the first to attack.
Didn't begin in 1947. The British knew full well how to play groups against each other, and when independence became a possibility, certain factions within those groups were more than happy to stoke tension and hatred that can still be felt today. This is a narrative of violence and recrimination that is not about to end anytime soon.
I get it, he needs to say it both sides so he doesn't catch hate from you, but this is just one-sided thing, right? I mean, are you kidding me? Right? There is no concrete evidence of anything, India ever being involved with anything terrorist. Do you know what type of uproar there would be in India if like some Modi government is like funding some terrorist cell? That would be ridiculous, right? There would be this is one of those things that doesn't pass in India to the people. It doesn't matter how much you use anything, right? So yeah, that's just bullshit, right? The whole thing is insane. The China Pakistan thing, now obviously India Russia thing. Yeah, India doesn't need any country. India is at a point that doesn't need any country to like strengthen, right? Pakistan does need China, right? But India was never going to attack Pakistan. It was always a response, right? The bombing inside Pakistan happened because Indian soldiers died in Indian soil by Pakistan terrorist cell. I mean, this is not some like, oh, there are gray elements of it. There are really no gray elements. When you really see it, it's only one party at fault. And British did this. Okay, fine, British are it wrong here. But now it's a time where like, okay, enough of blaming British. It's like people need to realize this is absurd, right? People need to realize that this whole thing like border dispute and shit is absurd. In the end of the day, you would have lost way too many than you would have gained by taking Kashmir or something. Chill the fuck out. Right, Pakistan, economy is slowly collapsing. You're gonna like, okay, fine, you got Kashmir now. What you gonna do? Like, come on. Right, well, there was Pakistan versus India, terrorist tit for tat. I tried to stay unbiased, but there is no way to stay unbiased in this one. Like, come on. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.